So I ran my first largest production because of this. And then after the first order, they were like, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We actually just went through a whole audit, and unfortunately, we can no longer do direct orders with vendors." So obviously, I didn't have the budget to onboard with them. So with that account alone, it wouldn't have worked out. So then I ended up with a lot more inventory than I was expecting, and that was a large risk that I took.
I'm Brandon Reed, and you're listening to Ready, Set, Startup, a podcast that brings you industry-tested perspectives from leaders working in all areas of the startup lifecycle, so you can learn from the wisdom that they've gained over years in their fields of expertise and apply it in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Let's get into it. On today's show, I'm talking with Anna Bautista. There is so much about Anna's story that every entrepreneur can relate to. Hustling on the side as she built the company in its early days, fulfilling orders with her own money, storing the product herself, and shipping it from her house. These, in concept, are all things that founders can relate to regardless of the company you've built. In our interview, we discussed the challenges of navigating vendor relationships and logistics, staying motivated when things don't go as planned, and the choice to bootstrap even when she's had interest from outside investors. The episode is full of actionable insights. You're going to love it. Here's my interview with Anna. All right, so tell me a little bit about your path specifically to entrepreneurship. You know, it's not a typical path. It's not typical career trajectory. So what about that felt right for you specifically?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I was first working in ad tech for almost about 10 years. And then there was something that, I don't know, in me that I wanted to do, kind of build something from the ground up, from scratch myself. It all started because I started to read about the whole trend of non-alcoholic beverages back in 2017, 2018. And I was really curious because I was trying to understand, why people were charging $14, $16 for a mocktail, basically, in New York City. And then a lot of non-alcoholic bars actually started popping up in the city when I was there. And as I started reading more about it, I realized that they were working with a lot of professional mixologists. And these people were working with botanical ingredients, really unique ingredients. And I was like, okay, so they're building something a little different. It's not just you're mixing juices and it's random. And it got me thinking a lot about this beverage that I grew up drinking in the Dominican Republic called Mabí, which is a tree bark brew. It's just made with a tree bark called Mabí bark, spices, and a lot of sugar. So I kind of had this little nostalgic feeling. I wanted to find it. I couldn't find it in the city, but I did find the main ingredient, the Mabí bark, and I just started making it myself. And as I started reading more about the trend, I realized, maybe I could make my own version of it to introduce into the American market because people have never heard of it. But I was a little concerned because I never had started a company myself. I never built a product. I came from, technology, not from a CPG background. But it just kept bugging me in the back of my head. I want to do something with it. How do I get started? And so I just started reaching out to around the pandemic time. Cause then I had more time. I was in my house. I couldn't, when you're in the office space, you have people watching you all the time, what you're doing on the computer, and you're also on your company's time, basically, right? So now that I have this extra time from not commuting, I realized, I could actually make something happen with this idea, see if I can turn it into an actual thing. And I started interviewing a lot of other founders in the CPG space, especially for beverage and food, learning about the steps of how do you go about building a beverage. And I realized, okay, this is the time to do it. Let me just dig in, start the process. I learned about a couple of accelerators, which eventually after I started it, the Target Accelerator, I was able to participate. And yeah, that's really what got me started into this whole entrepreneurial journey, just trying to figure out, can I build something from an idea to an actual product? What is the process? And I've been learning a lot about all these different parts, right? Marketing, sales, logistics, which is not my least favorite part, but it's one of the most important parts.
That's amazing. I love how it was started with a connection to nostalgia, like to thinking about, well, what like this special and fond memory from you when you were little. It grew out of that. That's really neat. When you first got started, did you know that you wanted to do it by yourself? Did you try to find a co-founder? Did you find a co-founder? How did that process go about?
So it's all been by myself. I currently don't have a co-founder. I haven't met someone that maybe like felt very passionate about it because it's a product that a lot of people don't know about. It takes a lot of educational parts of it. Like I had to tell people exactly what Mabí is, explain the product because it's a flavor, a very particular flavor that it's hard to compare it to like anything else in the current market. So I thought, I'm going to go about it by myself. I didn't think about like sharing the responsibilities with another person, but now that I'm kind of like in the middle of it, it's something that I have been thinking about, like where to find the right co-founder. Because if you don't have the right partner, I've heard like very, very terrible stories. So I'm in the middle of thinking like, okay, maybe I could go find someone in the next year or so, but I'm still doing it all by myself.
And as you've done that, as you decided to jump all in and build this business, has it been largely what you expected it to be? Of course, there was unknowns and challenges that came up that you didn't expect, but by and large, has it been about the same amount of effort as you expected? Has it been far exceeded that? How has it lined up to your expectations?
It's been very different from what I was expecting. A lot more work than I was expecting, that's for sure.
But you're your own boss. You set your own schedule. You just get to do whatever you want whenever. Yeah.
And that's the cool part, right? Like I love the part, the aspect that I do have a lot of flexibility with my own time. But also, in my case, it's like everything is self-funded. Like I haven't gone the whole route of raising capital yet. But it's also something to consider for the future because the CPG space is very, very capital intensive, especially beforehand when you're trying to prove that you have a good product, right? You have to make the product before having people tasting it and all of that. So it's definitely been a lot more work than I thought. Very stressful at some points too. Hard to find partners to work with because what I've noticed is that in this industry, if you're a small emerging brand, a lot of suppliers, they don't want to work with you because they want to work with companies that can guarantee long-term contracts or making sure that they have like higher volumes. So, it makes sense for their business, but if you want to build something from scratch, it's like, okay, I have like very limited options in terms of like what co-manufacturers I can work with, which suppliers I can work with, and even like transportation companies.
So you'd said that you haven't pulled any capital. Did you, and I forget if you said, did you do some of those accelerators or just start looking into those? And if you did them, was there equity exchange there? Did you have to give some of that to join the accelerator?
Yeah, so I did join the Target Accelerator in 2020. So I started the first part of the company was in 2021 officially. And it had a different name. I was making everything myself. And it was called something completely different. But then I did the Target Accelerator program. They have two versions. One is for emerging brands, for founders.
Target, like the brand Target that I know of?
Yes, or like the big Target, big, massive retailer. They have one that is for brands that are like ready to, get into Target, and then they help you through that process. And then the other one is to like prepare you and give you a lot of insights in terms of how you can get into mass retail. That's where I learned that I needed to have a lot more processes in place. I needed to change my product. I met a lot of other CPG founders. It was a really great accelerator. They do give you some money, kind of like a stipend that you can use towards whatever you want for your company. But what was really valuable was like all the information and all the networking with other CPG founders and that are part of the industry. So after that, I did change my brand. I switched from glass bottles to cans. I reformulated everything. Like I had my own recipes, but then I had to work with a commercial formulator to make sure that it was something more consistent and to be able to can them. I changed the branding. I changed everything up after that.
I mean, to be honest, yeah. So I've, done some research on you, looked at your brand. I'm blown away that you've done all that on your own. It looks like a funded company. I mean, really, the branding is really, really good. It looks really sharp. You've done a phenomenal job. And that feels like the exact right fit. A target accelerator feels like a really good first step for exactly. And but you keep saying CPG. Tell me what the acronym means.
Consumers packaged goods. So it's
Consumer packaged goods. Got it. Okay.
Goods,
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
anything
So
that
that's squarely where you land. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like food, beverage, things like soap, detergent, lotions, things that you use very frequently.
Okay, cool. So it's 2021. You've started this accelerator. You were working in ad tech, you said. At what point did you decide to go all in? I mean, there's a cliff jump at some point.
Yeah.
Do you say, hey, I'm doing this for real? What was that moment?
So I decided to do it last year, actually, in 2024.
Oh, wow. So 3 years you spent building it on the side.
Yeah, because it was like a whole process with a reformulation. I had to work with 2 different companies. It was really challenging because a lot of formulators here, they don't know how to work with the tree bark. It's a very unique ingredient. And they didn't know how to do like a concentrate. Can we do the whole thing? Well, like, does it have to be, if it's gonna be canned, it has to be like a certain type of way to mix it up. And the first company I worked with, they spent like 8 months. They didn't deliver. It was like a whole ordeal, and I had to like cancel the contract and then start over with a new. Well, that whole thing took a year. So I didn't launch as Bayjoo until 2023. And then I was receiving really positive feedback on the product. And I was getting a little burnt out from my previous job. So I figured, you know what, let me give this a chance properly. Let me dedicate more time to it. And so 2024, which is when I moved here to Austin, I started dedicating more time to it and just focusing on Bayjoo.
No, that's really cool. And like I said, that's phenomenal that you spent those 3 years building it on the side when to see the brand look so established and so polished as it is now, when you were doing it on the side, that's super impressive. So let's go there. Let's go to that moment, 2021 to 2024, and you're building on the side. You decide then to take that leap and go full time. You've moved, you're all in on this business. How do you, even though it sounds like you started having some traction, getting some good feedback, hearing from customers, having some sort of product market fit, but tell me about how you further establish that, and if you're still in the process of that, and what that looks like, the process of finding your customers, who is that target audience, and how you're getting to them.
Yeah, so I think the process of finding my key customer started really early on, right? Because the concept didn't change much from like the first, what I call like the draft version of the product to like what I have right now. I always wanted to make like a healthier, modern version of this culturally inspired beverage, right? That is really well known in the Caribbean, but people don't know about it here.
Mm-hmm. By the way, is it mass produced? Is a version of it mass produced there? Or is it like truly a local, like they go and make it themselves?
It's very local. I mean, there are companies that do it, they also mass produce it. But also a lot of people make it like in the streets. Like you can buy it in a corner, like in a bodega. And then there's like other versions that you could potentially find like in supermarkets. Yeah, so I was doing a lot of demos, and I started doing a lot of pop-up markets in New York City first, asking, customers a lot of different questions. I noticed like that the main customers, people who are definitely like health conscious, people who have allergies, looking for also a lot of non-alcoholic options, which was kind of like in line with the first idea or thinking about like, oh, this would be a great non-alcoholic option. People were going for it, which was like, okay, I wasn't too wrong about that part. And also diabetics. So people were looking for sugar-free options that actually taste refreshing and good, and that can mix with other liquids. And I think till this day, this is like our main customer base.
What line of communication did you have with your customers to find out that, oh, it sounds like people with diabetes is using this? Like, how'd you find that out?
I did a lot of surveys. So when people were ordering online first, I would send a survey, also through social media.
Cool.
When I was doing a lot of in-person pop-ups and demos, I would ask people questions directly. Nice. I think that's kind of like the best way to. Kind of hard to have conversations with so many people at the same time, but I try to like take notes like right after each event. And that kind of helped me like, okay, I think I'm on the right path here.
So as you've continued to build this company, have you brought anybody else on board? I'm sure, of course, you've told me lots you've been working with vendors, but any other employees?
I've had interns and temporary ones also that have helped me with business development.
Oh, awesome. And so when did you know it was the right time to bring them in, both just from an operations standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint to know, okay, I need the help and I can support it with what's already coming? How'd you weigh all that?
I was doing a lot of traveling last year as well, right? So I figure I can't be, taking this time traveling and like doing the business at the same time. So I realized that I needed some help. I needed someone to help me to do reach outs while I was away and also to help with deliveries because everything right now it's like pretty manual, right? Like I don't have third party or like what we call like a 3PL, like a third party logistics company that does all the drop offs or deliver for you.
Are you shipping the cans from your house?
Yeah, like I have a storage space and I ship them from here. Yeah,
Crazy.
so I need all that help and that's when I realized, okay, I need to get someone here. And they're like more like temporary, they're in full-time employees. But yeah, that's how I've been able to manage it without putting too much budget towards that yet.
And so what does growth look like for you from this point? I mean, is the next big step for you getting in retail stores? Do you even want to? Is that growth too soon, too quickly? Or, I mean, what's the next step of growth for you look like?
Yeah, so the next step that I've been working on is getting what we call like an anchor account. So an account like a Whole Foods, like a Publix or Sprouts or even like a Target. But in order to work with those larger retailers, again, you have to have there are a lot of different systems in place.
Yeah, totally.
But some
because if they submit 100,000 orders, all of a sudden, yeah.
But some of them do have flexibility, right? Like if you get through like Whole Foods, let's say through like their local emerging programs, you can negotiate like, okay, can we start with like 5 stores first or maybe 10, maybe 20, as many as you can handle at the moment. And then from there, you can figure out, okay, the product is moving. We can start growing to like another 5, another 10 or so. But the thing with mass retailers is that they do have like a very long timeline to review new products. So for example, for beverages, if you submit like an application, let's say like in October, you're not going to hear it until like next year. So in the meantime, it's like I work a lot with independent retailers, but it's been definitely challenging to find new accounts with larger ones.
So let's talk a little bit about competition, about defensibility of your brand, industry incumbents. I'm super curious because this obviously, like this, I mean, you said CPG space, this food and beverage space is just huge. I mean, name any number of brands that are already in there doing it, but you've decided to build something very unique. And so tell me how you're differentiating yourself, how you're positioning that messaging, and how you're going against these, I mean, huge companies. How are you going against Pepsi? How are you, which you're, I guess, technically not different drinks, but how are you positioning yourself differently? How are you doing that?
I think like our main differentiator is definitely our unique ingredient of the Mabí bark, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. You probably haven't.
No.
Most people have not, or even heard of like the Mabí bark or the Mabí drink. So there's like a lot of educational aspect to it because you gotta like let people know, then they want to try it because what does this taste
Here's
like?
what it is, and then here's why you would care about it. Yeah.
Right. And if when you hear tree bark, you're like, oh, like, what is that? That sounds kind of like dry and I don't know. And then you try it and it's like, okay, it doesn't taste like the way I thought it would, right? Because it's infused with other organic ingredients. And so the main differentiator is definitely that unique ingredient that also comes with benefits. It's really good for digestion and inflammation. It's an ingredient that has been used for many, many generations. I'm talking about like indigenous people in the Caribbean started making this beverage. And it's all like sugar-free, less than 5 calories per serving. So it's like a very, very clean, unique beverage. And there's nothing that I have found yet out there in the market. I think the closest thing that I can compare with is kind of like yerba mate, except that yerba mate gives you just like the energy boost, right? It's kind of like an energy drink versus we're more of like a beneficial beverage.
You had mentioned that there are some people, even there locally, that are producing it maybe for markets there, just not just like for their families or for them. Are you competing against them directly or indirectly? I guess the question is, are you selling your product there?
I'm not, at least
Okay.
not yet. No, I'm not. I'm only selling here in the US. So
Okay.
that's why it's challenging because like so far I only know of this brand in particular. But because people don't know about it, it can go like 50-50.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I'd like to think about it like when coconut water was introduced here, right? Like the first few years, people were
Yeah.
just, what the hell is that? Like, we don't know what that is. We don't want to try it. And then eventually, like, it caught up, and now it's like coconut water is everywhere.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with yerba mate as well. Like, people were very unfamiliar with that product. And now I think I'm going through like that process, just like introducing it here, educating the customer, where it's like, you may love it, but also you may be hesitant to like paying like a premium price for something that you have no idea what it tastes like.
Yeah. Talk to me about, as you're building a company, there's risks everywhere, bets that you're taking. Is there one that you can recall that's one really big bet that you feel that you had to take as you're growing, even establishing your company? And did it pay off? What did you learn in that process?
So I've sold my product to corporate offices, and one of them that I sold to first was LinkedIn. So it'd been LinkedIn and Meta. And I took a risk because I went to San Francisco. I met up with a team. They have what they call magic kitchens. It's like a whole different company that manages it, and they have really great products. They work with chefs and all that. So it's like a whole process for them to review your product, get feedback, and make sure that their employees actually like it and want. So I was able to sell to them the first time. And so during our conversations to negotiating, like, okay, how much product will I be sending here? I was supposed to be shipping products from Austin to San Francisco on a bi-weekly basis. So I ran my first like largest production because of this. And then after the first order, they were like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We actually just went through a whole audit, and unfortunately we can no longer do direct orders with vendors. You have to go through our distributor. And they work with one of the largest distributors in the country. So obviously, like, I didn't have the budget to onboard with them because, again, the same thing. If you're like a large brand, they don't want to talk to you. If you don't have like an anchor account, they don't think it's prudent to work with them because they have, expensive onboarding fees, and they want to make sure that there's a lot of volume. So with that account alone, it wouldn't have worked out. So then I ended up with like a lot more inventory than I was expecting. And that was like a large risk that I took. So in that case, what I learned is that it's best to have some sort of contract beforehand. Yeah. But I ultimately, I feel like it was a positive risk because I did go there. I met them. They did like the product.
Yeah, they liked it. Yep.
Order like the first one. And they told me, if you're able to onboard with them, like we want to continue ordering from you, but this is a new process. So it's like those kind of things that sometimes you think it's going to work this way, but then something happens and it ended up going a different way.
So many other players. I mean, you can get in front of one party and make the sale, and then there are other people involved, and man, that's so difficult. How did you? I mean, that's a big deal to even get in that room to get a seat at the table to say, hey, this is my product, for them to then test it out. And what a awesome confirmation or validation of your product that they liked it enough to want to stock it. But how'd you get at the table and actually make that sell? Did you just cold outreach? How'd you do that?
So I met someone who has a coffee company. They work a lot with them, actually with a lot of corporations in the San Francisco area. And it was kind of like a VC networking event. I was also like demoing my product that day. And I just got in touch with the co-founder, this lady from Colombia. She's super nice. And I feel like we just like started a conversation. She's like, oh, I want to help you. Let me see if I can make an introduction. We're bringing a couple of, we're presenting a couple of new products to them. and I think yours would be a great fit. So like we were talking for a while, and then when they were doing the demo, she's like, "Hey, gonna be this day. Do you think you can make it to San Francisco? I can make an introduction to this and this person, and then you let me know how it goes." So I guess it was through networking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's actually how it happened.
Awesome. Yeah, a warm introduction is
Yeah.
the strongest in you can get. So that's really neat. As you've grown, let's talk about kind of that moment you said that you pivoted, that you changed your branding, you went from glass to cans, and glass bottles into cans. There was a couple big switches there. As you grew and needed to make those pivots, what were the impetuses for that? And then how did you manage that and kind of keep intact the vision that you had in place? You didn't have to say, all right, I guess we'll just put 40 grams of sugar in each can. Like, well, you've had to maintain this vision that you had at the beginning, which you were able to articulate off the bat of like, here's what we are, here's what we sell, here's our product. How'd you maintain that through those pivots?
It was a lot of organization, a lot of conversations with people. I interview so many formulators and
Nice.
co-manufacturers. Like it was a lot of hours of researching, figuring out one, like which people I could work with and how I could work with them, right? Because there's always also the challenge of, you may find a co-manufacturer that can do it, but their minimum orders is like 50,000 cans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them they won't even do like a pilot run, for example, which is like your first production run, which can be like smaller than your first, what do you call it, like first legit one, if you want to call it that way. It was just a lot of time talking to people, asking for recommendations, basically interviewing the people that I was planning on working with, and maintaining like a constant communication, right? Because things can really fall through the cracks. And when you're putting production together and it's just like it's a lot of people that you have to talk to, everybody has like a different minimum order. You have to calculate, okay, what makes sense? How much should I be, how much ingredients should I be putting here to make sure that I have enough even for like a next production. So it was a lot of organization, a lot of, just speaking with people, making sure that I'm keeping track of every step. I feel like it was like a course on project management.
That's awesome. I think there's so many things that people can relate to, no matter what industry they're in or what product they're building, to exactly what you said. So you also mentioned that you decided to not take funding at this point in the company, that you've been self-funded. And that's a choice. I mean, that's a choice. And it's a choice I've made as well at this point in my company. And I'm just learning so much in this space of like the cautions, the risks, the rewards. Why have you chosen to go that path? What advice would you have for others who are going down that same road themselves?
There was definitely a choice. And for me, because I was doing it like part-time for a while, I wanted to have the freedom of, I don't want to owe people money. And I know that if I start taking money from people right now, I'm going to have to do this full-time right away. Yep. And I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a cultural thing or what it is, but like my mom has always been like really like intense about like avoiding debt, and it's just been with me since forever. So I wanted to make sure that I had like my own money, enough budget to do things the way I wanted to with on my own timeline as well, right? Because I was afraid if I start, if I take a loan or if I start asking for money right away, I'm going to have this like pressure of like, you have to get this much back by X date, which is what I would have to do, right? If I just,
totally,
going that route. But for me, I wanted this to be, I wanted to make it like the least stressful that I could, because I know that it was going to be stressful anyway. So I just wanted to like have that flexibility, but I do understand that not everybody has, the opportunity of doing that way. And sometimes I'm thinking also like, man, I should have just started this with borrowed money. Like I didn't have to like take all this risk by myself, because a lot of other people don't do it like that. But, I guess at the time, maybe like I didn't know best. And like I mentioned, I also just didn't want to have that extra layer of stress.
Yeah.
So that was my choice. Now that I understand how capital intensive it is, I probably would have taken like a different route but to take that route, like I need a partner, right? Like I'm not gonna go ask, I'm not gonna go like ask investors like, hey, give me this much, and I don't have like a full team in place. Like I understand the things that are required for that. Like yes, you have a product, yes, it's already validated, yes, you have sales, but they need more than one person, right? And sometimes you need more that than independent retailers. Maybe they do want that anchor account, right? Or more like distributor partnerships. So for me, I feel like I have certain things to meet first before I go and start asking for money, basically.
Yeah.
Granted, not everybody needs that, because some people, they do have just an idea and they're lucky enough to get capital beforehand. But I personally didn't feel comfortable doing that.
I mean, the more I've pressed into this space for my own company and for this podcast to understand, how does professional money work? Either angels or VCs. I've definitely heard the line of like, get a co-founder before you get funded. I've heard that. It happens all the time that people get funded as single founders, but it's definitely recommended to have another co-founder. But I'll tell you that you are very, very much further along than a lot of people who I know that go for funding. I mean, you actually have people buying your product. You have a brand established. There's whole VC firms that cut checks only for people who have like an idea written on a napkin. Like, this would be cool to do. And, and they go in and of course they validate and ask the right questions. But man, you are really far along. And I wouldn't even say that you were like, I don't know, early, maybe I just didn't know better. Also, the more I've learned in this space, it feels like from the outside looking into entrepreneurship that getting funded, it feels like a badge of honor, feels like, oh, they're funded. They did it. Like they went, they got money. At least that's how I felt about it. But the more I learn in this space, the more I learn that, man, keeping 100% ownership of your company is the badge of honor. Like that, if you can pull that off, and you can't always, and sometimes VC funding isn't the only route because you don't have capital and you need it. Sometimes it's the best route. Sometimes that's the best route for that company, for that market. But a lot of times it's not. And even the VCs, even the investors I talk to say, are you sure you want money? Like, are you sure Because it's a whole different ballgame. You said all those things. I mean, pressure cooker immediately. And it's just a different business. You have a boss now and you're working for a board and whole different ballgame. And so I totally hear you on that. And sometimes it's the right call, sometimes it's not. But you are much further along than I think than a lot of people going to get funding. And although that's been your choice so far, I can imagine that at some point you'll have to readdress that question, like as you try to scale, because you just have you have a lot of capital that's necessary. You're not writing software. It's like the code just like works and works and works over and over again. This is like actual physical inventory. Exactly. So talk to me about kind of as you've learned and grown your company, gone in as a full-time entrepreneur, some things that you've learned, kind of a gospel truth that you consistently go back to as you've run your business, just a principle that you live by, that you've seen continue to prove itself out.
Everything takes longer than what you think it's going to take, and everything ends up being more expensive than what you think it's going to be. That never changes. And if it doesn't happen that way, then just like consider yourself lucky. It's just because that's always the case. So I'm always like, I have to do everything like earlier. Like if you think's going to take you 3 weeks, just think of it as like 7 weeks. Because there's always delays, especially when you're working with other companies, even with people, right? There's just like so many other factors to take into consideration to create something, to make something happen. So I feel like I'm always thinking about and saying that out loud. It's like, all right, if you want to get something done, start like way earlier and allocate more budget. Just that cushion, because it just always ends up going that way.
Yeah, that's universally applicable. No matter what you're building, no matter what market, yes, things take longer and are more expensive for sure. What is the end goal? Do you have that defined for you and for this business? Are you looking to get acquired? Are you looking to just build it and keep it as a more of a lifestyle business and do something else? What's your goal?
Yeah, no, at first at the beginning, I was very naive and I thought like, yeah, like I could see this, I could build this, grow it for like a very long time. But now having like a better understanding of the space, I think that I would not be upset with the idea of getting acquired.
Yeah.
Because there are so many companies out there that are like way more established. They already have like all the channels that you need to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, that I know could make like a much better job at distributing and like getting it out there in more markets than me. And like I said, like it's really expensive to get to that point. So I wouldn't be upset about getting acquired. But of course, like if I can grow it on my own at a good pace, because I think that the whole thing now is like everybody wants like accelerated growth, right? It's like, hey, we gotta go from like 1 million to like 50 million in like a year, and that's not possible unless you're like venture capital back, basically. Or maybe you're like you get like a celebrity to become your co-founder, and that doesn't always really guarantee that your brand is gonna grow like crazy. So yeah, like I think ideally probably getting acquired would be best. But yeah, if there's like the opportunity for me to grow it, like again with like a proper partner or partners, because sometimes you do get lucky and you can get like the right strategic investors to help you grow your company properly. I could be doing this for a long time.
That's refreshing to hear, honestly. You hear so many entrepreneurs are just like grow, 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 grow. And it's refreshing to hear like, yeah, I want to grow, but I want to do it the right way. I want to do it within the financial means that I have right now, and I think it's a really wise approach a lot of the time. When you do speak with other entrepreneurs that are maybe looking to get started, or they're interested in what you're doing, what's a question that you find yourself getting asked a lot? And what is a question that you find that you're not asked a lot, but people should be asking you?
I feel like they always ask a lot about funding. Like, how do you get started? Like, are you gonna go ask for money first and all that? And I get it. That's like a really, really important question. But they don't ask enough. Like, how do you keep pushing forward? Because there's like obviously like always a lot of rejection. And again, like difficulty or like challenges of working with different suppliers that they may see like, oh, you're just a small brand. We're not going to make enough money with you. And you have to, that can't face you. You have to just like keep pushing forward, making sure that, and you understand that a no can turn into like a maybe and then a yes later on. Move on to the next person, just keep reaching out to people. They don't ask enough about that. Just like how to like stay sane when not everything is going like the way that you want it to go. And that's something I feel like people need to understand from the get-go, because it can get hardcore pretty quickly.
Yeah, it can. I think there's this sheen around entrepreneurship is seen as like, can be seen as like this end goal of like, oh, once you have your own company, then you're like smooth sailing. And it's like exactly the opposite. Once the buck starts stopping with you, things get really hard really quickly.
Like running your own company, like, yes, you can be like the founder and the CEO, but that just means that you have like a lot more work than what, like, I feel like I've worked more doing this than before, and like making less money than before. It's like you really have to be into it, get ready to like get like a paycheck cut. If you don't get like, backed by like, a venture capital or something where you can actually like, okay, I'm going to allocate this much for my own salary. That's not always the case.
No, absolutely. People don't realize how much they need to buckle in right when they get started. So imagine that you woke up at the start of your career and you have all the knowledge and experience that you've gained over the years building this company that you have now, and you've retained that somehow going back in time. How do you spend kind of that first week of your fresh start?
I would spend that first week just talking to more people, just like seeing who, creating like building connections from the get-go, because I feel like starting at the beginning of my career, I was just like so focused about like doing a good job and like completing the task and doing it really well. And then I forgot to like just talk to people, just like get to meet the people that you work with. Build those connections. How can you add value to them, and how can they add value to you? Because later on, those people can help you with, your own projects, your own company in the future, or growing your career in whatever company you are. So I think I would spend more time definitely just building those connections within the workspace versus just like going crazy about like, I need to make, I have to be perfect at work. Like, because like that doesn't always get you where you think it's going to get you, right? Like, it's just going to be adding more work to you.
That's a great answer. Connecting with people it starts and stops, it begins and ends rather with who you know and who you're meeting. And as proven out by that warm intro you had to like a big supplier. And it happens all the time. That's a great answer. So lastly, I have one more question for you. What's one tool, quote, or book that you found indispensable to you either personally or professionally?
This is going to sound really basic, but I would say Google and LinkedIn they have been my best tools.
I love it.
I mean, that's how I found out everything I know, right? Like,
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it feels basic, but it is core. I mean, if everybody's being honest, that'd be everybody's answer. Google and LinkedIn, two most indispensable tools. And nowadays, man, all these LLMs are so helpful because they condense the information even further and provide you the information. So I was just looking for vendors this last week that was something really specific. So I asked ChatGPT the deep research function, like, here's my company, here's exactly what I need, here's what I don't need, all this, like, who should I be working with? And like serve me up like 6 curated vendors. And it can be super helpful. Well, this was awesome. This was really, really great. There was several like really unique pieces to your story that I took and found really refreshing, really motivating. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. This was great.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You take care. If you guys enjoyed the show, leaving a review is the best way to help others find it, second only to sharing it directly with your friends and family. Thanks so much for helping get the word out. Hit me up at brandon@readysetstartuppod.com if you have additional questions about a topic I covered, have suggestions about another area you'd like to see me dig into, or just want to say hi. Please reach out. I'd love to get in touch. Keep imagining, keep creating, keep inspiring your spheres of influence with what you're passionate about. The world may just need that dream that's in your head. See you next time.